All right, what is going on, everybody, and welcome to the official Crossover Comics podcast. My name is Jeremy, and with me today is my co host, Michael. We are also known as JJ's Comic
Yo,
Stuff
yo.
and Longbox Entertainment on pretty much all social media platforms. What's going on,
That's
Michael?
right. What's up, JJ? How you doing, man?
I am just hanging out, man. Yesterday was New Comic Book Day. Spent way too much money, as per usual.
As always, we always do that.
Yep. So, why don't you go ahead and go over what we were going to cover in today's episode?
All right. So, since this is our first official episode, we was like, what's a better way to get to know us than by telling you who our favorite characters are, right? And maybe, just give you a couple of recommendations for each one.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to try to talk your guys' heads off. We're not going to get you down in a spiral of, oh my gosh, how many books am I going to have to write down? We're going to try and keep this pretty straightforward.
Exactly, exactly.
So,
So,
yeah, man, if you want to start off, go right ahead.
all right, sure thing, sure thing. Now, I just want to say, even though um, I have five characters, even though one is at that five spot, I still love all these characters equally, and I read them a lot. So, number five on my list would definitely have to be Nightwing, Dick Grayson.
Okay.
That is my number five. Uh, I
Why
don't know,
Dick
it's something
Grayson?
about. I don't know. It's just something about his character. He was the first ever sidekick. I feel like growing up as a kid, you can always like resonate with the sidekicks more than you can with the adult superheroes. So I kind of like saw myself in Robin. So yeah, I mean, and he's like the quintessential sidekick. Like without him, we would have never got Bucky Barnes. We wouldn't have Kid Flash or any of the other sidekicks. So, and then the Teen Titans, we wouldn't have had Teen Titans. So,
And
yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong, isn't Dick Grayson also one of the only sidekicks to actually like end up becoming his own hero, not taking up the title of his mentor?
I want to say he was the first. Yes, I do want to say that he was the first um, sidekick to actually move past his mentor's shadow in a way. Um, if you can, yeah, that move it. Because I was about to say Wally West, but Wally West just became the Flash. So because technically he was the first to take up
Right,
the
right.
mantle, but yes, he was the first. Dick Grayson was the first to get his own identity, and that was in the Judas Contract storyline.
Okay, so give us a couple recommendations if somebody wanted to read Nightwing for the very first time, or any Dick Grayson really. Where should they start?
All right, so I have three recommendations. Three. The first one, and these are in no particular order or anything. The first one would definitely have to be Nightwing Year One by Chuck Dixon and artwork by Scott Beatty.
Okay,
Um, it's so good. Actually, no, not. It's co-written by Chuck Dixon and Scott Beatty. The artwork is actually by Scott McDaniel. That's my bad. But that run is just so good. The entire Chuck Dixon run, in particular, the whole thing is so good. But that story is all you need to know pretty much to understand Nightwing and why he chose the mantle. And it's just a good starting point for Nightwing. Um, and I don't really want to like spoil too much, but it also goes into uh, his relationship with you know Barbara, Bruce, and even Superman. Because I don't know if a lot of people are aware, like Dick Grayson and Superman are really tight. They're really close. Superman is like his big uncle in a way.
okay. See, yeah, as more of a Marvel guy, I was not aware of that.
Yes, yes, yes. So he actually actually I don't want to say how he gets the name Nightwing, but he let's just say Superman gives him the idea.
Gotcha, gotcha.
But yeah, so yeah, year one, classic, awesome. My number two spot is definitely Batman and Robin by Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely.
That's a great run.
Ah, it is
So
so
good.
goaded. I love it. I love it. It's I don't know. This might be like my one of my favorite like Batman runs. And to be
It's
honest,
very classic Batman and Robin.
yes, yes, yes.
It's
Even
not
though
them out, fighting alter universes powers or anything like that. It's street level
exactly,
Batman and Robin.
exactly. I love the fact that uh, Dick Grayson is Batman in this, and that Damian Wayne is his Robin. And I would just like to say this: I think the reason we've had such great character development with Damian is because of Dick Grayson. Dick Grayson really had that brother bond with Damian, and actually some really beautiful stuff. And I love the villains that were in the run. You know, you got Professor Pig and Mr. Tope, some very obscure, weird villains. You know, but it's all just a lot of fun.
Yeah, that story gave us a lot of villains that don't get enough attention, in my opinion.
Hmm.
And Professor Pig, if you want to go dark with Batman villains, that's probably about as dark as you're going to get. And that's
Yes,
saying
yes.
something.
Most definitely, most definitely. And I don't know if this is like a hot take or whatnot, but this is just my opinion. From reading that run, I feel like Dick Grayson was a better Batman than Bruce,
Really.
and I feel like that's somewhat the whole point of the character of like Robin is to be better than Batman, or to be a better person than Batman.
That makes
More
sense.
of that. But yeah, and to go on to my third pick, "Leaping into the Light" by Tom Taylor and Bruno Redondo. That run. This is the more recent Nightwing stuff for our listeners out there, just in case you don't know. Coming straight out of the Rebirth era, so good. It's so good. Um, I love
It's
how
kind of hard to go wrong with Tom Taylor.
you can't like Tom Taylor is just one of those writers where I feel like when he writes a character, he understands that character.
It's almost like he becomes that character to write for the character.
Yes, yes. And that run is just so beautiful. It's it takes place pretty much after the Rick Grayson era, which we don't like to talk about. um,
I, yeah, for listeners out there, if you want that horror story, we can do a whole episode on that.
we could, because anyway, it also takes place in the continuity after City of Bane in the Batman titles. So, you know, from what happens to Alfred, I don't want to spoil anything for anybody, but yeah, and we just get to see. Honestly, this story is a great example of how Dick Grayson can not only be a better Batman sort of character, but a better Bruce Wayne than Bruce Wayne. Because I just love the foundation that he founds. I don't want to say the name of the foundation because I don't want to spoil people, but everything in that run is made. And then they put Barbara and Grayson back together. Ah, hopefully that
Yeah, you
lasts.
can't go wrong with that. Everybody loves that relationship in
Yes,
comics. So,
yes, yes. But yeah, man, those are my pick and my number five pick, Nightwing. So, what's your number five?
My number five is going to be Deadpool.
Deadpool. Okay.
And I only have one big recommendation for Deadpool. And if you guys have not read World's Finest, that is in my opinion, one of the best Deadpool runs ever written. Give me just a moment here. Yeah, it's called The World's Greatest Comic Magazine, Deadpool.
Okay. Okay. Who is
It
that?
is from 2015, and it's basically what would happen if Deadpool had billions of dollars and his own team of mini Deadpools.
Oh, so this is like a.
So if you like, he basically has his own mercenary squad that he sends out on missions now, and
Oh,
they
that's dope.
begin hating him because he's just so famous and he's getting all this money, and they're really not
Mhm.
making nothing. And it's classic Deadpool stuff, man.
Ah, I bet that's good. I haven't read that run for myself, but it does sound good. I mean, Deadpool is always fun, so
Right.
can't really go wrong.
Yeah, that one. It's Jerry Dugan and Mike Hawthorne was the team on that one. And like I said, it was probably one of my favorite Deadpool runs I've ever read.
Okay. 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 So, like, what in particular, like, makes you gravitate towards Deadpool?
Deadpool basically feels like how I would be if I was in his situation. If I had been given unbridled cancer as a superpower, basically, and the ability to heal, I would. I mean, why would you not just try and go and take out the nastiness of the world if you know
Yeah.
you can't die or be hurt?
Right. True. True. True.
I mean, why not?
And and that's crazy because I'm pretty sure what all of our favorite characters on this list, we can relate to them in some type of way. That's what makes them
Right. I
special.
mean, even if it's a small way, like
Mhm.
obviously I've never been into special forces. I've never been, trained with all that craziness. I don't have mutagenic superpowers linked to my cancer cells, but but I could understand his motivation. Like at this point, just take out anybody who he feels like, because what's going to happen to him at the end of the day?
Yep. True that. True that. True that. True that. He's a dope character. I always did like Deadpool. I always did.
And also, if anybody, there's a couple volumes of it, Spider-Man and Deadpool, because when those two are together, it is nothing but comedy through the entire run.
Facts. Yes.
Deadpool is always either trying to become Spider-Man's boyfriend or his best friend or his roommate or his business partner, or it doesn't matter. He wants to be involved with Spider-Man in some way, shape, or form.
Yes. Yes.
And
For sure.
Spider-Man is always irritated by it.
Isn't everyone a little irritated by Deadpool?
He's the merc with a mouth, man. He didn't get that nickname for no reason.
True that. True that. True that. True that. All right. It's funny that you mentioned Spider Man because my number four, my number four is the web slinger himself, Spider Man, Peter Parker. Man, I just
I'll
love
say
this.
we can just go ahead and combine this because Spider-Man is actually my number one, but I
No,
figure there's no point in talking about it twice, so let's go ahead and bang it out.
hey, we can, we can. So number four. So I put him at number four. He used to Spider Man used to be at my number two spot.
Okay.
He used to be at my number two spot, and then I don't know. I think as I got older, my taste changed a little bit. I still love Spider Man. I still read Spider Man. Like me and you both, we have this new confusing run on our pool list. you know,
Starting to make a little more sense.
it is. It is. It
It's
is.
finally starting to come together and actually be cohesive.
It is. But the thing about Spider Man, like growing up a geek, a nerd, you know, there has been times in my life I felt like Peter Parker. You know,
where just absolutely nothing is going right in your life. And then on top
exactly.
of that, someone's trying to kill you.
Hopefully not. Hopefully,
But I mean,
hopefully
you
not.
you get the analogy I'm trying to say. Like,
Exactly. Yes. Yes. And I think that's what makes Spider-Man so special when it comes to, like, with great power, comes great responsibility. He is willing to make so many sacrifices for the greater good that it is so beautiful. Uh, Spider-Man is really a true hero. He makes
e- e-
mistakes, but he's only human at the same time.
exactly. He is one of the most human out of all the Marvel characters, in my opinion. Just because of that, like you actually see him deal with day to day life as it smacks him in the face every single day.
Yes, 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 yes. So, reading recommendations.
We could go on for hours with
We
Spider-Man
we
rating
could.
recommendations.
This was actually the hardest one. This was the hardest one I had on my
I
list.
to narrow down to a couple, it was really difficult because
Yes,
there's so many good Spider-Man runs.
there are. There are. So I want you to go first.
Okay, my first one is Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man run from the 90s.
Yes, goaded, goaded,
It was
goaded.
one of the darkest Spider-Man universes, I guess you could say, that we got. The artwork was darker, the writing and stories were darker, the
Yes,
villains were way darker. They bumped up the Goblin characters, like they made them more than just solely focused on Spider-Man and actually made them like complete psychotic, just homicidal maniacs.
yes,
Like it made the stakes a lot higher for Spider-Man in that run.
most definitely, most definitely. My favorite issue is the one where he teams up with Wolverine.
Hmm.
Uh, See those two together.
I think that's issue 14 or 15, but
Hmm.
I'll put the correct one up here. I'm sure I'm wrong.
I know it was on the later side of it, because that
Hmm.
series didn't last too long.
Well, Todd McFarlane wrote for I think 20 issues, and then a new team took over for a little while, and then it just kind of fizzled out.
Okay, yeah, yeah. That run is good. That run is classic. If I would have, that was actually competing to be on my recommendations, but it got beat out. So with me, I want to throw out Craven's Last Hunt.
Another classic.
It Man, certified classic. Like, when you first read it, you just feel like you're reading a classic story. Uh, the one thing I really like about that story is the fact that it's not really about Spider-Man. It's about
No,
Craven.
it's more about Craven trying to deal with his life trauma, really.
Yes, yes, yes. Craven has a lot of issues. Craven, uh, at least
Has a
to
lot of
me,
regret.
he does have a lot of regret. He deals with depression. Uh, and I feel like with Craven, you look at Craven and he just looks like a very, masculine character, right? He has the lion mane on him. He just looks very badass. But in the story, you realize he almost kind of struggled what he thinks of what a hunter is, or in his ideology of what a man is. And
Hmm.
and that's one thing I like about this story, because you get inside Craven's head, and the fact that he hates Spider-Man so much, he's like, I'm going to be a better Spider-Man than you. you know?
Yeah, spoiler alert for those who have never read Craven's Last Hunt. He attempts to become Spider-Man after he kills Spider-Man.
Yeah, yeah, kills. Wink, wink.
Yeah, well, you'll have to read it, but yes,
Exactly.
that is the
Uh,
premise.
that pretty much is the premise. Yes, it's a dark story. It's a dark story. But yeah, do you have any other
Okay, then my second recommendation is going to be Life Story.
life story? That was my next.
So, well, see, then we're on the same wavelength here. It's the best if you're trying to get just a basic, full idea of everything Spider-Man's been through in like a 32 page to 48 page book. Life Story is where it's at.
Yes, yes,
It
uh,
is basically a synopsis of Spider-Man's life from the 60s until now.
yes. It really is. It's like a Reader's Digest,
Hmm.
pretty much. But
So if you're going in there looking for one long continuous story, you're not going to get that. I've seen a lot of people get disappointed because that's what they think it is, and that's not what it is.
it's not. Each issue
It's
takes you through something.
basically an anthology series.
And honestly, the thing I like about I think Life Story is really fun if you've read some of those classic stories that they're
Hmm.
putting new spins on. It just gives you like I don't know, it like peels back another layer almost.
Right.
And just like JJ just said, uh, Life Story it takes place through Spider-Man's whole life as if he was aging in real time.
Yes, so this isn't, rebooted stories. This acts as if the entire continuity of Spider-Man's life has happened since he was a teenager and now he's in his, I would assume, 40s or 50s.
Yes, yes. It takes you all the
Because
way
I
to the
don't believe that
'60s.
they say exactly his age in the book,
I can't remember off the top of my head.
but I would imagine if he was 18 in the 60s and then it ends in like the 2000s, he would be around probably 40, 50 years old.
Yeah, and the thing I also love about because I feel one of the biggest complaints from Spider-Man fans we don't get to see the character grow in the main
Hmm.
continuity, right? We don't like a lot of us complain, like myself. I just want him and MJ to be happy together and happy.
Right.
So
Honestly, they don't even necessarily need to be together. They just need to be happy.
that too, that too, that too. That's
Because
probably
neither
what
one of them have ever been happy.
true that, true that. And I like how Life Story you just get to see a peek of what could be, you know.
Hmm.
So yeah, Life Story is really great. Do you have a another pick?
The original Amazing Spider-Man run. I mean, you cannot beat classic Jack Kirby and Stan Lee. You just can't. I don't really think I need to go over much there. It's the origin story of Spider-Man. It is the quintessential Spider-Man run. If you need to know anything about Spider-Man, everything happened first there.
Heck yeah, heck yeah. The original Stan Lee era, because I remember Kirby was doing some. I think he was doing the covers, and it, you had Dicko as
Hmm.
well. Uh, that run started it all. It started it all. I love the way how Steve Ditko drew him. How he's like
Hmm.
very skinny and lanky. You know what I'm saying?
Like a spider would be.
Yes, yes.
A spider is not big, bulky, superhuman sized thing. Like it doesn't have massive muscles or anything.
Exactly, exactly.
This isn't Gorilla Grodd we're talking about. Like
And I think me and you both agree that this that original run is basically, you know, kind of what you get in the Tobey Maguire movies. You know, like at least the feel of the way how Toby plays Spider Man.
yeah, that's what I've always told everybody. I'm like, if you want campy 60s Spider-Man, that's what Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man was.
Yeah,
It was as close to that original run as you were ever going to see on a screen.
true that, true that, true that. Dang, that, you know, I was tossed up to put that on my list, but I put something on it that's kind of gives you a throwback to those days.
Okay.
Spider Man Blue by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale.
Mmm.
Uh, man, this story, the waterworks, man, the waterworks.
This one will make you cry.
It will. At the end of the day, Spider-Man Blue is a love story. Um, it's very new reader friendly. Um,
Hmm.
you the only thing you need to know is that Peter Parker loved a girl named Gwen Stacy, and
And this is basically covering what he deals with every Valentine's Day since
yeah,
losing that girl.
mhm.
We're really trying not to give away a
I
lot,
don't want to.
but
I don't want to give away like, and I just love that story. The way how Tim Sale draws those characters, it's very retro. Um,
hmm.
it reminds me of Steve Ditko and John Romita Sr. Um, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful story. I don't want to give nothing away from that story. That is just one that you just have to read. Uh,
Yeah, we could just leave it at that. Go read Spider-Man Blue.
yes, 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 yes.
Okay, so that was my number one spoiled. Your number four. So let's go to your number
All
three.
right. So this is my last one, and that is Ultimate Spider-Man. Ultimate
Yep,
Spider-Man
that's yep.
by Brian Michael Bendis and Mark Bagley on artwork. That
Those guys have had some misses,
they had, but Ultimate,
but that was
that
not one
is
of them.
definitely not. That is definitely not. I'm so glad. Like, and I think Ultimate Spider-Man is like universally loved. Um,
And I think that has a lot to do with the era that it was out too,
yes,
because it came out in the year 2000 when there was all kinds of stuff going on. If you were my age at the time, I was 10 or 11 years old at the time, and like our whole world was changing. We were going from cassette tapes to CDs, we were going from VCRs to DVD players. You all don't think that that's a big deal, but at the time it was, like the whole world was changing. CGI had just become a thing. Everything had a different feel to it back then.
the listeners to this are like, okay, Boomer.
Ha, I am not a boomer. I'm not that old.
Uh,
But no, like it's just I think it was the art style lended to the time it came out, and that I think is one main reason why it was so universally loved.
yes, yes.
And it had the cartoon to go along with it at the same time it was running.
True. It did. It did. And I like the fact that it just takes that classic Spider-Man story and just modernizes it. You know.
That's exactly what it did. They took a big handful of Y2K and shoved it into Spider-Man,
Yes. Yes.
and it was amazing.
And still to this day, Ultimate Spider-Man, Mary Jane is my favorite version of Mary Jane throughout the multiverse. Um, she was a real one. 616
Down for the cause, for sure.
616 Mary Jane, you can learn something. uh, but yeah, but yeah, man.
Okay, so my number four character, since we just went over my number one character, was is actually Batman.
Okay, okay, okay.
And I know that might surprise some people because I throw a lot of shade at Batman on other apps sometimes. But being a kid from the 90s, Batman was everywhere. You could not go to a fast food place without seeing Batman toy. You could not turn on the TV without seeing either a Batman movie or a Batman cartoon.
True that. True that. True that. Actually, I know this isn't a surprise to JJ, but Batman is my number one.
I figured he was.
Spoil that. Obviously, I'm wearing a Batman shirt. Yeah, man, Batman is a goat. Like, even though I do feel like sometimes he's like one of the greatest comic book characters of all time, but he's also one of the most misunderstood comic book characters as well.
Yeah, I'll agree with that 150%.
You know, uh, just in case anyone that's listening knows, we even though we both like Batman, of course, he made it on our top five. We don't think Batman can solo your verse.
And no, sorry, Bat
No,
stands, but
we are sorry. We are so sorry. But yeah. So what about Batman? What do you like about Batman, JJ?
again, like, how would you feel if you were a little kid and your parents were just killed in front of you for no reason? If you had the
Very
money and the
well.
ability to do what Bruce Wayne did, you would.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You would.
You would
He
go
actually has
after the
more self
kinds of
control.
people that, you know, took your parents away
Yeah,
from you.
you're right. You're right. He actually has more self control than I would because I'd probably take it to that next step that he
Oh
wouldn't.
yeah, anybody in my family, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna go to prison.
Yeah, yeah. That one rule wouldn't apply here.
No. So at the end of the day, Bruce Wayne is still a better man than I.
Yes, yes. And I think um, one thing I like about Batman when he's when he's written correctly, in my opinion, right? Uh, when you see a Batman that's very compassionate, um, he's not just this brutal vigilante detective 24/7. He actually shows compassion, um, and that's one thing I like about him. Those are the moments that I love. That even the way he treats, like in Batman: The Killing Joke, he tells the Joker, like, "Look, we don't have to keep doing this. Like, let me help you."
Hmm.
So it shows he cares about people. Um, and that's something you don't really see in like more recent like Batman media, but I miss it.
No, it's smash the bad guy and don't feel bad about none of it.
Yes, yes.
Whereas what like, he always tries to reach out to the person inside the psychopath.
Mhm. Yes, yes. And I think that's one of the most enduring things about Batman. Um, he's one of the oldest characters like on this list, and
1939.
there has to be something special about you about a character to be around that long.
And to be as beloved as Batman is.
Right, right. So, with that being said, what are your reading recommendations for The Dark Knight?
My first one's going to be Batman Year One. I mean, if
Batman
you
Year One.
want to know how Batman started out and see Batman as a vulnerable, unskilled, non trained, ill equipped vigilante, then Batman Year One is what you want to read. You see him
Yes, I
fail
agree.
and fail miserably.
Yep,
And
yep. The
instead of
amateur.
teaming up with all the, teaming up with Superman and teaming up with all these, other characters going up against these cosmic huge entities. He's street level Batman. He's going after the organized crime elements in Gotham that make Gotham the way it is before the Joker, before the Riddler, before Killer Croc, all these mega supervillains that threaten everybody in the city. He was going after just mobsters.
Right, right, right. And I put Batman Year One as well on my list of recommendations. That is definitely the right place to start. Not
Hmm.
only is it the story of Batman, it's also a story of Jim Gordon. And that's one thing I love about it. The Jim Gordon stuff in it, it's so good. So good. Um,
Because you see Gordon before he became commissioner, before he was allied with Batman, when he was still hunting
mhm.
Batman.
Yes, yes, and you get to see the beginnings of that relationship. And for anyone that hasn't read it, I'm not gonna spoil anything. But what Batman does for Gordon at the end of that story, I would be friends with him too. Like
Yeah, 100%.
after after that, I would be like, you know what? Yeah, yeah. For who you just saved, yeah. hmm and the artwork by David Mazzucchelli, beautiful.
Second to none. It's very simplistic artwork, but it's very expressive at the same time.
Yes,
The color choices, just the stylistic choices altogether. It's dark, it's gritty, it's brutal, it's violent. It's not pretty.
yes, yes. It his artwork kind of reminds me of the movie Taxi Driver
Hmm.
in a way. Like you could just tell that that city is just nasty, you know.
Hmm.
And
And it does a very good job of painting Gotham in that light, like showing you how depraved certain
Mhm.
parts of the city are.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, man. Dang, our first pick, the same. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Do you have any other ones?
Not really.
Really? That's your only one?
That's my all-time favorite Batman story. So I mean, it's kind of hard for me to start because a lot of the other Batman stories for me, there's parts of them that I love, but
Oh,
I can't
okay,
say I love
okay.
the entire runs. You know what I'm saying?
Right, right, right. I actually, all right. I have three other picks.
Okay.
Three other picks. Okay. One is definitely Batman Ego. Uh,
Mm.
it's written and drawn by Doran Cook, and pretty much it gets inside the head of Batman. Because the thing I love about these characters is what makes them tick. What's going on up there, you know?
Hmm.
And I just love that story. The fact that Bruce is pretty much having an inner battle with himself on
Hmm.
what to do with these criminals. And the truth is, like Batman, he wants to kill these criminals. He wants to.
Well, and especially because in that story, he really realizes how futile it's been doing what he's been doing
Yes.
because he sees the revisitism at Arkham Asylum. He sees them just basically go in, they supervillains break out a week later, and he goes and catches them and puts them back in, and it just all goes again and again and again and again.
hmm Most definitely. Most definitely. And I just love how it pretty much lets you know that with the other people that he has in his life, they give him a reason for what he's doing. Not just the his parents' murder, but other people in his life and people that look up to him. You know, that's what keeps him back. You know, that's what keeps him sane in a way. So yeah, ego uh, is definitely one of them. Another pick. This is actually my favorite Batman story of all time, and that is the Long Halloween. Uh, if I needed to cheat, I'm gonna put in Dark Victory with it as well because that's the direct sequel.
Hmm.
Um, written by you know the one of the greatest creative teams in comics, Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. It's a Batman detective story. So
Yeah, if you want Detective Batman, the world's greatest detective that we haven't seen in quite a while, unless you count the Batman movie, which was much more on that side of things, then yeah, Batman: The Long Halloween is amazing just as a detective story.
most definitely, most
It could be
definitely.
a non-Batman related story and still be a great book.
hmm hmm And and another thing I love about the Long Halloween is how it bridges that gap. As in, when did Gotham go from mobsters to crazy supervillains?
Hmm.
And I love that. And if anyone follows me on TikTok, you've probably seen my video where I talk about my favorite Batman villain, and of course that is Harvey Dent, Two Face. Uh, so that's I might be just a little biased to the story, just a little bit, but yeah. Uh, and my last pick, uh, because in that last pick, my with Long Halloween, I'm throwing Dark Victory in there as well because Robin
Right.
is important. Uh, but for my final pick would have to be Batman: The Man Who Laughs by Ed Brubaker. Uh, that is a story about the first time Batman, deals with the Joker, and just to get some of the
It's about as
inner.
close as a Joker origin story as you're going to get.
Yeah. For the most part, yeah, it's kind of and I like the mystery behind it, and how uh, Batman is who, like he's like, this guy is something else. Because if you think about it, in the continuity, Batman's just been dealing with mobsters, stuff like this. So the Joker was like the first real super villain that he went against,
Hmm.
and he's just like, dude, I don't really know what I can do
He was
against
the
him.
first person he ever went up against that didn't have any real personal motivations behind anything.
Yes,
It
yes,
was
and
just chaos for the sake of chaos.
yes, and you definitely see that in this story, and
Hmm.
and Batman is finding it hard to understand why. What is this man doing? So
Well,
yeah.
because in his mind, all criminals have a motive.
Hmm. Hmm.
This The Joker has no motive, no main goal. There's no point to any of it.
Yes,
It's just fun.
yes, yes, and I like to think I think that's why Batman finds the Joker kind of fascinating. You know, uh,
Because he can't figure him out.
he can't. No, even when he thinks he knows the Joker, he doesn't. Uh, so yeah, if you want to see the start of that Batman and Joker relationship, definitely check out The Man Who Laughs. It's great. Quick read too. Uh, yeah.
Yeah, it's not very long, but it's really good.
Hmm. Hmm.
All right, well, then my next character is Nightcrawler.
I knew it. I knew you were gonna say Nightcrawler.
I'm not a huge X-Men fan, but Nightcrawler, for some reason, I don't know if it was his character design, I don't know if it was his backstory, which is probably one of the most tragic in X-Men.
Hmm.
I He's one of those characters that you just root for.
Yes. Yes.
He's a character that's always around.
Hmm.
I don't think he's ever gotten his own solo run.
Um, I
Yeah, I
think
could be wrong.
I, I don't know if that was actually him though, because there was a time where Nightcrawler had died. Comic book death. Um, and it was the Nightcrawler from the Age of a Age of Apocalypse storyline that had his
Which was technically an alternate universe, correct?
correct. Technically,
Okay,
technically.
right.
Uh,
As with most things.
yeah, Age of Apocalypse is weird. You could say
Hmm.
alternate timeline, alternate, yeah, whatever.
But yeah, like for those who don't know, because there isn't a whole lot of solo Nightcrawler material out there to read, you could basically I would recommend the '90s X-Men runs because he pretty much is like one of the main characters of the team throughout that whole run.
Hmm.
So you're going to get a lot of his content. So yeah, for those of you who don't know, basically, as far as Marvel's concerned nowadays, since there's been a couple different retellings of his origin, he's basically the son of Mystique, who she had to give up basically while she was fleeing, and he was found by a sorceress who raised him in the circus because of his appearance, and that way he was able to kind of hide himself for a while from people who were basically trying to hunt him down because they thought he was a demon.
Facts, facts. Nightcrawler.
And he's one of those characters where his religion is like a very central point of his whole character. It's part of the reason he didn't want to originally join the X-Men.
Nightcrawler is he's very interesting. I always did love his character, and the fact that his faith is so, such a huge part of him. Yeah.
So, okay, we each got, what, 2 characters left?
2 characters left, yes. So, speaking of faith.
Oh, no, I've got 1 character left.
Oh, you do?
Yep, because
because some of them...
Spider-Man was my number 1.
Okay, so you had Spider-Man, and then you said Nightcrawler, and then Batman. Oh, yeah. Okay, I got 2 left. I don't know what happened. Oh, it's because we shared a lot of the same.
Yeah.
All right, so my next one, and this is like number 3 on my ranking of these characters, and that is Daredevil.
He very narrowly missed out on my top list.
Yes, Daredevil. Man, he's just an amazing character. And it took me a while to truly fall in love with the character. It kind of happened by accident, almost.
Okay.
I didn't realize how much I liked Daredevil until I actually started really reading Daredevil. And just like Nightcrawler, he's one of those characters where his faith and his religion is so, important to his overall character. And he struggles with his faith and his religion. That's one thing I love.
Well, because his daily life kind of contradicts his faith.
Yes.
What he does is not what is taught.
Exactly. And I don't know, he's just such a great character. And, the Netflix series, or I guess now we can call it the Disney Plus series.
Right.
It's amazing. I think that's a good way to really start loving the character. But to really get on to my reading recommendations for the character, the first one is definitely Daredevil Yellow by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. I know I've said those 2 names a lot during this whole podcast, but they're just amazing. You can't go wrong with them. Daredevil Yellow, just like Spider-Man Blue, it's the same kind of concept. It's about loss and grief and what our title characters do with that. And except, this is with, his whole ordeal with Karen Page. And I just like how, again, you just kind of get into the head of Daredevil and how Karen made him feel and what it was like when he first donned the costume. And you even get some stuff about his father in there. And another cool thing is this is perfect reading, especially since the She-Hulk show is coming out and we know Daredevil is in it and he's wearing the yellow costume. And he wears it in this, and you get the origin of that yellow suit in this. But yeah, I just love Daredevil Yellow. And another pick would definitely have to be Frank Miller's Born Again. Daredevil Born Again.
Which is what the new show is going to be based on.
Exactly. Yes. Even though the title for the show is kind of confusing people, because we basically got Born Again in season 3. of Daredevil.
Hmm.
But but yeah, comic book storyline is great. It's pretty much you know a story of breaking a character down and building him back up. And I feel like Daredevil does that a lot.
Hmm.
He's one of those characters that I feel like keep reinventing himself. You know?
And he never gets beyond like a certain point. He's sort of
Right.
like Spider-Man in that regard. They never let the character get above a certain threshold of struggle in their life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because if they got past that, they wouldn't be the same character.
True. 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 And Daredevil's a lot. He's a lot like Batman in a way. I like his morals. You know. Even though I would say in some ways Daredevil might be just a little bit more brutal than Batman. Um,
He's willing to go a little farther.
just a tiny little bit.
He still doesn't kill anybody, but he's willing to put you in the hospital.
True that. True that. Um, and speaking of not wanting to kill anybody, my last pick for Daredevil is the Chip Zdarsky run,
I
uh,
was wondering if you were going to put that in there.
which he is still uh, he's still writing the book. It started over with a new number one. But yeah, the Chip Zdarsky era has just been amazing, um, and the fact that not he's not willing to take a life. They really play on that aspect, and I'm not gonna say how. I'm not gonna spoil anything because these stories are so good. You should just read them. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, you get to see how Matt deals with that concept in a different way that I didn't expect to happen. And when a certain event happened, I couldn't believe it. I was like, nah, there's no way. No, there's no way. But yeah, even though that was a very vague explanation of the Chip Zdarsky run, uh, everybody, please check it out. It's amazing. But yeah, uh,
All right. Well, yeah, my last character, which is technically my number two, is Silver Surfer.
Silver Surfer. Okay.
And I don't think it's because I can relate to him in any way, shape, or form. Because if you know anything about Silver Surfer, he's the herald of Galactus. He's been around for millions and millions of years, like since the dawn of time, basically. It's, there's no relating to Silver Surfer other than the fact of
Yeah.
that he. In one of my main recommendations is Silver Surfer Black that came out back in like 2019. It basically shows him attempting to redeem himself in his own eyes for allowing Galactus to just basically roam the universe and slaughter people.
Right, right, right. Uh, that run is really good. That run is really good.
Really good. I mean, the artwork is amazing.
Yes, it's very trippy. Like it's trippy. Like very
It's very
psychedelic looking.
it reminds me of who's draw I hate myself for forgetting this person's name. Who's doing the artwork on the current Defenders runs?
Uh,
Rodriguez something. The last name Rodriguez, I know that.
I can't think of
But
the
Silver
artist
Surfer
right now.
Black, I do know, was Donnie Cates and Trad Moore was the cover
Yes,
artist for most of them, and then Trad Moore was also the penciler for most of them.
yes. And Dunning Case is so good at writing cosmic characters.
Yes, he. The only issue I have with Donnie Cates is that he tries to make every character he touches a cosmic character.
Yeah, true, 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 true. And I know exactly what you're talking about.
I love Donnie Cates, man. I'm a big fan of his stuff, but not every character has to have big, grand, omnipotent powers, you know? Like,
Yeah, yeah, I
but
definitely
yeah, and
understand.
then my other main recommendation for Silver Surfer is Rebirth, the series that they just did a little, I think it was a 5 issue run.
Ah, I haven't read that one.
It's basically a very short telling of how Silver Surfer basically started out.
Okay, okay,
So you see what caused him to become the Silver Surfer. You see him getting heralded by or summoned by Galactus to be his herald.
okay.
All that fun stuff. And it's just updated, so you're not reading 1960s dialogue boxes that are the length of the page.
Shots fired at Stanley.
No, I wouldn't say shots fired.
uh,
I'm just it's the modern attention span.
True that. True that. That is true. True that.
There's not many people that are going to sit there and read a whole column inside of a comic book that they're trying to read in a half hour, 25 minutes.
That is true. Older, like Silver Age comics are very wordy, as I like to call them.
They're very text heavy.
Like it would take you like an hour just to read one issue.
But I think that's also because of how limited they were back then as far as the Comic Code Authority goes. They
True.
had to keep everything in very certain guidelines, so they couldn't tell the story they wanted to tell with the artwork sometimes.
True. True.
So they just had to put it in as text.
That is true. That is true. Still good stuff. We love Stanley over here. We love
Oh yeah, great stuff. It's just be prepared to spend all day reading.
Definitely got that right. Definitely got that right.
But yeah, so that was my last character of the episode.
All right, now it's time for my last character, and it's not surprising, I don't think, because he is right behind me, and that is the Man of Steel, the last son of Krypton, Superman. Yes. Ah,
See, I am a recent Superman fan convert, I guess I
yes.
could say.
So for the
I
people
used to
that's
not like Superman at all. But over the past couple of months, I've been reading more Superman, and it's actually really good.
yes, yes. So for the people that are listening or watching, I'm on a mission. It's called Operation Make JJ a Superman fan. So hopefully,
he's succeeding so far.
well, thank you. I'm glad. I'm glad. I was worried. I was worried. So yeah, my recommendations. I have four. I don't know. I have a lot of recommendations. I don't know.
You do.
Yes, man. Uh, it's so many that I like. I'm like I have to choose like
Hmm.
a lot. So my my number one pick, All Star Superman by Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely. That story is just amazing. I love it. I love it.
It's a very Superman-esque story.
It touches my soul. I'm not gonna
It's
lie.
like
Like
classic. It's like classic Superman.
it is. It is. I love how. So for people that might never read it or not, All Star Superman it's a Elseworlds tale. It's not in the main continuity. But the thing I love about Grant Morrison, they love uh, the Silver Age. I'm pretty sure that's Grant Morrison's favorite era of comics is the Silver Age, and this version of Superman is very much Silver Age Superman, um, and I just love it. Like Morrison found a way to put all that silly Silver Age stuff and make you just want to cry it sometimes, like the stuff they did with Bizarro. Um, so many good moments. So many good moments in that
It
story.
gives you a very nice rundown on who Superman is.
Yes.
Not just, where he came from and all that, but like actually what motivates him.
Yes. 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 And I think I think the story is very new reader friendly because they tell you the origin in like the first page, and it's quick.
Yeah, I mean, you first maybe two panels.
Yes. It's quick. It's like Doom Planet, scientists, uh, farmers or loving families. Something like I can't remember what they said the kids were, and that is
Yeah.
literally all you need. Uh, it's just so good, so good. Uh, my next pick isn't surprising. I have thrown this creative team's name through this whole podcast, and that is Superman for All Seasons by Jeff
Mm,
Loeb and Tim Sale.
another amazing book.
Oh man, this story. The thing I love about this story, it is told from the point of view of people in Superman's life.
And that's
And
something you don't get a lot in any comic. You get
facts.
one point of view
Yes.
90% of the time. There are some exceptions, but 90% of the
Yes.
time you get the point of view of the character the story is about.
Hmm.
In this one, you get point of views from Lois Lane, Jonathan Kent, Lex Luthor, and
Lana.
Lana Lang.
Yes. Hmm. And each, I'm not gonna lie, the Lana story just, I'm like, oh, dang.
Yeah,
It's just like, man, what could have been? What could have been?
right.
uh, and even like getting in the
And
mind.
each story takes place in a different season, which is
Yes.
kind of cool.
Yes. Yes. All the
Hence the
seasons.
name For All Seasons.
Yes. You have winter, spring, fall, summer, all the seasons. And the artwork by Tim Sale is just chef's kiss. Um, the fact that I love how he draws Superman. Like he's very. I like how his Superman is a little chunky. I don't know why. I like.
Right. He's not super 100% just ripped.
Yeah.
He's got bulk. He's
Yes.
got girth to him. You know, he looks like something not from here.
Like he looks more
He
like a
looks
power
bigger
lifter.
than, yeah, he looks larger than life, like Superman
Yes.
should look.
But and the other thing I like, even though he looks like larger than life, because when we think of like when we say words like that, we think, oh, this might be like a little intimidating. Superman is still he looks like a cuddle
Right.
bear, like just the
Hmm.
kindest person you will ever meet. And
He looks like someone who would come to save you.
yes, yes, yes. I don't know that the way how Tim Sale drew Superman's face, it was just a lovable face. Like that is a face you can't help but love. I don't know, like I know I'm like fangirling over here over the story, but it's amazing, and it's so good that the recent TV series Superman and Lois has a scene taken straight from this book, and it's the scene where the little kid loses his hat because Superman just saved him, and Superman gives him his hat, and the kid is like, "Oh, cool costume," and Superman simply says, "Thanks, my mother made it for me." That is such a Superman moment. Like,
That's like that's Clark Kent shining through Kal-El right there,
yes, yes,
because that is something a good old boy from Kansas would say about his costume that his mom made for him.
yes, yes. And I think that's one of the greatest things about Superman is the fact that he's human. And this is a perfect segue into my next recommendation, and that is Superman Brainiac, which is written by Jeff Johns and Gary Frank. Amazing, amazing. The fact that I just said those two names, it's a must read just off of that.
Now, I have never read this story, but you said Jeff Johns, and I immediately had my attention.
Oh, it's so good.
If that tells our listeners anything.
It's so good. Because one thing about Superman, and this is one of my gripes that I have about like the modern like movies with Superman, like Henry Cavill Superman movies, is that uh, they focus a little too much on his alien heritage. Um,
Hmm.
but the fact that like Superman is human, he was raised a human, and this story by having you compare Superman with Brainiac and their contrast. Oh, it's beautiful stuff. It's beautiful stuff. And in the continuity, this is technically the first time that Superman fights Brainiac, the real Brainiac. Because we learned in this story that the other times he fought Brainiac, they were just like drones, essentially. So,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. So you got all that, and the fact that Brainiac is so fearful. There's also Brainiac has some connections with Krypton. I'm not going to go into all of that. Um, and a huge connection with Supergirl. I love Supergirl in this story. She is hilarious at one point. Uh, she has a moment with Cat Grant, who is a character that works in the Daily Planet. So hilarious. If anyone has read it, y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. Hashtag weird plastics. uh, but but the fact that you see the fear that Kara presents with Brainiac, oh man, like the fact that Supergirl is such a powerful character and she is scared of Brainiac. That, so yeah, and I think what shines bright in this story is just Superman's humanity. That is the most beautiful thing. That is the most beautiful.
Because he's one of those characters that could very easily pretty much take over the entire world if he wanted to.
Yes,
It would not be difficult.
yes,
Yet he chooses to fight to protect everybody.
yes, yeah, yep, yep,
And that is, I think, part of the humanity popping through,
most definitely.
which they don't show enough of in most of his runs. They very much focus on the fact that he is the last son of Krypton. He is basically one of the strongest beings in the universe type deals.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I feel like
When
in
really he's just a kid from Kansas.
exactly, exactly, and I feel like in modern runs they definitely do skip over that, and they want to just go into like the action and stuff because people for the longest time have said Superman is boring, blah 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 blah. It, and I feel like that
That
mindset.
was one of my gripes about him for a very long time, was that he was boring and
Yes.
overpowered.
So you're the
But
reason, JJ. You're the reason.
oh, it's all my fault, huh?
It's all your fault. Yes, yes. Play it. I'm playing. Okay.
It's all right. I've been blamed for worse things.
But yeah, and I felt like they always try to like want to make Superman like more actiony and all that stuff. But at the heart of the character, it's this. It's his heart. That's what it
He's a
is.
kid from Kansas just trying to do the right thing.
Yes. And the last thing I want to say about this story, Gary Frank's artwork is just beautiful. I love how he draws Superman. Uh, he models his Superman after Christopher Reeve, and that's how you should do it.
I would say you don't get more classic than Christopher Reeve's Superman.
Exactly.
So I mean,
Exactly. And it is one of those. It's one of those stories. It's very cinematic in the way it's told.
mhm.
So there's certain scenes like reading it in my head. I can hear that John Williams, Superman theme. Amazing. All right, but my last choice, and I think JJ, you probably would figure this would be on my list just because I went like gaga over this story when I first read it, and that is Superman, Son of Kal-El.
My current favorite Superman story that is running right now.
Oh, it's amazing. Uh, what I'm not getting from current Superman and Clark Kent, I am getting it from John, and I love it. I love it.
It's it's a coming of age story basically,
Yes.
but it's a different Superman. Clark is off world. He's dealing with other things. Earth needs a new street level Superman.
Yes.
And so Jonathan steps up.
He does. Oh, he does.
I mean, the way it's being written, he's doing a great job being Superman.
And you know the funny thing that you love this story and it's your favorite. And I think that's because like you're a huge Spider-Man fan, and this story has some Spider-Man elements in a way. Young superhero coming of age story, trying to figure out how he's
making mistakes,
trying to figure out how he's going to go about this whole thing. And another thing I like how John he has some big shoes to fill, and he definitely feels that because there's part where he overdoes it. He needs to learn to slow down.
That he can't be everywhere at once.
And the fact that he has the drive to just do it, and
because I feel like at the beginning of the run, he's very much trying to basically be his dad.
Yes.
But then after, I'd say, issue 5 and 6 and going into the next later issues, he's very much becoming his own version of Superman. Rather than just trying to emulate exactly what his dad did.
Exactly. That's exactly how I feel about it.
And of course, we'll go ahead and real quick mention the fact that it made all kinds of people on news media mad.
Oh, yes, it did.
Which is the most ridiculous thing in the world.
You know what's crazy, JJ? I wasn't even thinking about that at all. That is not even crossing my mind, and that's when I could tell with people, they're only mad about stuff that they're not going to read anyway. So why?
Right, because I mean the people that were upset about it, for those who don't know the situation, Jonathan Kent comes out as bisexual in one of the issues, and to real comic book readers, nobody batted an eyelash.
No.
It was just another character development point for a character. It didn't change who he was or how he behaved or anything.
And the thing is,
It didn't change the story. It was just really, this is what it is. And the news media ate it up. And they said they were trying to make Superman woke. This is not our Superman. Superman's now un-American. Well, newsflash, Superman's an alien.
And also, newsflash.
Hate to break it to you. And also, it's not the same Superman. You were complaining because you thought it was Clark Kent, and it's not Clark Kent. It's a totally different person.
Exactly.
So,
and newsflash, Superman has always been woke. If we really want to break it down, Superman, he was literally
Superman was created by 2 Jewish immigrants,
and he was the champion of the oppressed,
who were fleeing Nazi Europe. I mean,
he in Action Comics #1, he was fighting corrupt businessmen and corrupt government officials.
There's a whole story called Superman Fights the KKK. So, I mean,
I'm like, Superman.
And that's not a recent story. That's a pretty old one.
Superman he's been woke. So I'm like, this, and then also the thing about John Kent, they've never talked about his sexuality at all because he was a child before this.
And now that they've aged him up to the point where most people are discovering what their sexual orientation is or what their gender might be or whatever have you. And it would make sense that his character would go through that at the age that they've made his character now.
Yes. So it's I never understood that.
It's people who don't even read comic books upset. We're not going to get into it any further than that because we could say all kinds of horrible things about them, but that's just playing into what they want. So
that is definitely true. But yeah,
Superman, Son of Kal-El. It's still an ongoing series. Volume 1 of the hardcover is out right now. Volume 2 is coming out in the next few months, I think. Mm-hmm. And if you guys haven't read it yet, you really, really should because it's very good.
True that. if you choose like at least one Superman story to read, I would definitely say that one. It's amazing.
It's the most modernized version of the character you're going to get right
And
now.
I love him so much. I have his action figure for the Watchers on YouTube. Yeah,
There you go.
but yeah. So those are our picks. That is 5 of our favorite superheroes and a couple of recommendations. Of course, I went crazy with the recommendations.
Yeah, you might have extended the podcast to well over an hour, but that's okay.
Yeah. Hey, but y'all love us, right? The listeners love
Right,
us.
exactly. You guys are hanging out with us, so we're willing to sit here and talk it up.
Exactly.
But yeah, this has been issue number 1 of the brand new Crossover Comics podcast. It is the brand new comic book and nerd culture show that you should get to know.
Exactly. And if you want to be a part of a fun and safe space for fans, and without the toxicity, make sure you are listening to Crossover Comics.
And so I will leave you guys with this. Until next time, be safe, be kind, and take it easy.
Bye.